We're going to be talking about what are called alkanes, alkenes, and alkynes. So to start off, all three of those words belong into a category called hydrocarbon. A hydrocarbon is just a simple organic compound which contains simply carbon and hydrogen. So if it has those two compounds together with nothing else, then it's a hydrocarbon. The first type of hydrocarbon is an alkane. So a hydrocarbon with only single bonds between the atoms is said to be saturated and is deemed to be an alkane. So hydrocarbons get their own prefixes and they get their own naming system. As an example, if it has one carbon, its prefix is meth. So back on the previous slide, there was CH4, that's called methane. And then if it has two carbons, it's eth. So back on the previous slide, C2H6 is ethane. If it has three carbons, it gets the prefix prop. C3H8 is propane. And then my last example, if it has four carbons, it gets the prefix bute. And if you look on this example, C4H10 would be butane. Here are some illustrations of hydrocarbons. So using butane, which is C4H10, you draw the structure with the four carbons as the backbone, or the carbon skeleton, and you surround it by the hydrogens. So please make sure to draw all of these models and name them. So the complete structural formula has the backbone of the carbon, or the carbon skeleton. There's also something called the line angle formula, which I'll show you in class. Each one of those corners where the lines come together represents a carbon. And then there's also something called the condensed structural formula. The condensed structural formula just takes each carbon and says how many hydrogens are on it. So if you look at the complete structural formula, the first carbon on the left-hand side has 3 hydrogens on it. And if you look over on the condensed structural formula, that's why it says CH3. So that's how the structural formula works. So it's a bunch of different ways of illustrating the same thing. Moving on to the next topic are alkenes. These are considered to be unsaturated hydrocarbons, and the reason why they're unsaturated is because they have double bonds in them. So to be considered saturated, you have to only have single bonds, and then as soon as you have double or triple bonds, it's said to be unsaturated. So a hydrocarbon with one or more double bonds between the carbons is called an alkene. So all you do is, instead of an alkane, you change the ending to an ene if there's a double bond in the carbon structure. As an example, C2H4 is a simple alkene, and you can see in the center of the carbons there's a double bonded structure. The last one is an alkyne. An alkyne, you simply change the ending of the word from ane to ine if there's a triple bond between two carbons. So an alkane is all single bonds, it's said to be saturated. An alkene is double bond between carbons and it's unsaturated, and an alkyne has a triple bond between the carbon and is also unsaturated. Alkyne, one of the most... Lastly, to figure out the formula for an alkane, alkene, alkyne, please make sure to write this down. To find the formula of an alkane, the formula is CX and then H 2 times X plus 2, and you'll learn how to use this in class. And then alkene is C times X H2X, and then an alkyne is CX H2X minus 2. And then the names or the suffixes change from ane, ene, and ine. So you can see in this model on the right side of the screen, there's a single, double, triple bond of the same molecule. So in the first one, it's ethane, so it's 2 carbons in the center surrounded by hydrogens. And then instead of a single bond, turn it into a double bond and call it ethene, and then you can also triple bond it and call it ethyne. The importance of this information is that large chain hydrocarbons, so really long large chains of hydrocarbons, make up things that are really important in our everyday lives. Methane which is a simple saturated alkane, is used as natural gas, which is used as a fossil fuel. And we also use butane, propane as fossil fuels. You would use propane in a barbecue, you would use butane in like a Bic lighter. Something interesting about hydrocarbons, really long chains can also form things like plastic. Really long hydrocarbon chains are called polymers, and they're made up of just repeating units of the molecule. So a polymer is made up of hundreds of thousands of individual units, which are called monomers. So monomers make up polymers. So each molecule is a monomer, and there are thousands of monomers which make up a polymer. Polymers are everywhere. They're in fabrics. You're probably wearing a polymer right now. If you check the label on your clothing, if it has polyester in it, it's made out of a polymer. Also, something as simple like a uniform, or a soccer ball, or a soccer field, or a thing of curtains, all of that is made up of large hydrocarbons.